If you are ready, give me a thumbs up so that I know we are ready and set, because we are already 15 minutes behind time. Distinguished friends from the media, good afternoon to you all. On behalf of the NDC, I would like to welcome you to our headquarters for this all. Today we on the newly proposed constitutional CI that the Electoral Commission is seeking to lay before the August House of Parliament, a CI which borders on voter registration and other election matters. It is a very important topic to us as a party, and so we will plead with you to give us your maximum attention. I will also plead with you to restrict the movement and the conversations in the room so that we can have decorum. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as was advertised, this press conference is being held under the auspices of the Council of Elders, Great National Democratic Congress. And so I would like to introduce to you members of the highly esteemed Council of Elders of the party before we start today's proceedings. Even before I do so, let me acknowledge the presence of our Deputy General Secretary in charge of operations, my brother, Comrade Otukono. I can see the Lion Man is in the house, Honorable Sam George, MP for. And then we have the chairman of the Council of Elders of the party, Alhaji Idrisu Mahama. A round of applause for him too. We have Alhaji Mahama Idrisu. Thank you very much for the correction. We have the Chief Executive Officer and General Secretary of our party, the only general in Ghana's politics, Honorable Johnson Asidun Ketia. A round of applause for him. Ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly acknowledge media houses who are streaming this important press conference live on their platforms. We are live on Joy News Television. We are also live on UTV. We are live on Ahoto FM. We are live on Power 97.9 FM, Asempa 94.7 FM, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We are also live on Pan African TV. We are live on Lao Silence Media. We're grateful to Kevin Taylor, our brother, for streaming this press conference live. And we are live on Active TV as well. Very soon we'll be live. Very soon we'll be live on Weasel Television as well, so that those of you who would want to follow this presser live on social media can also do so. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me, as I give you maximum 60 seconds to settle down and give us your attention, let me acknowledge my senior brother, Honorable Elvis Efie Ankara, Director for Elections, and Colonel retired Bevlo Lati, former National Security Coordinator, is also here. Yes. At this stage, I will invite to the podium the man who will be addressing us this afternoon. He's none other than the national chairman and leader of the great NDC, who will be delivering this speech for and on behalf.
General Secretary of our party, colleague, FEC members, Honorable Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram, our distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, let me say good afternoon to you all. Let me begin by thanking you once again for your prompt presence and willingness to avail yourself, to avail your platforms for us to engage the Ghanaian people on a number of very important matters that threaten the sustenance of our democracy and our very peace as a nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we invited you here today to draw the attention of Ghanaians to how the Electoral Commission is seeking to undermine our democracy through the proposed public election registration of voters instrument. Upon a careful study of the draft above, and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purpose of public elections and referenda, end of quote. This clearly makes the proposed provisions unconstitutional. What it means is that if the CI is passed in its current form, it will not only be unconstitutional, it will radically disenfranchise all those prospective voters who, for no fault of theirs, are unable to obtain the national ID card issued by the National Identification Authority. They would have been denied the right provided for them under Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution. The 1992 Constitution provides only three conditions for registration as a voter, and that is: 1, the person has to be a citizen of Ghana; 2, the person must be of sound mind; and 3, the person must be 18 years old and above. Therefore, no subsidiary legislation can be used to undermine this provision. That is the reason why, since the inception of the Fourth Republic, all regulations governing registration of voters have always provided the guarantee system in order to take account of all qualified persons who, for one reason or the other, do not possess the requirements. The removal of this provision from the CI and make the Ghana card the sole requirement for registration is to deny all such persons the right to register and vote. And this is a complete breach of and violation of Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution, and therefore unconstitutional. Again, Article 45E of the Constitution also enjoins the Electoral Commission to undertake programs for the expansion of the registration of voters. Given the above provision, we are of the view that the proposal in the CI, which made citizens' right to register and exercise their franchise in elections. The Asare-led EC is also at variance with the constitutional mandate to undertake programs to expand the registration of voters. At present, statistics available suggest that at least about 2 million Ghanaians are yet to be issued the Ghana card. The registration process for the Ghana card has been characterized by several difficulties. The National Identification Authority has missed several deadlines to complete the registration of citizens. Professor Kenatifa, Executive Director of the National Identification Authority, stated at a press conference last Friday, 16 September 2022, and I quote, "We have the mandate to register all Ghanaians in Ghana and all Ghanaians abroad. There is no way NIA can register all Ghanaians in Ghana. If you look at our performance record, as stern as we believe our performance is, the reality is that there are approximately 2 million people aged 15 years and above who have not registered for the Ghana card. there is no way the National Identification Authority can register those people. It is physically, technically, and fiscally impossible. End of quote. We therefore found it strange that the Electoral Commission will call a press conference and urge the National Identification Authority to expedite action on registration. It obviously doesn't lie in the mouth of the EC to do so. In the circumstances, therefore, making the Ghana card the sole requirement for voter registration will serve to deny millions of Ghanaians their right to register and vote. Ladies and gentlemen, Regulation 2 of the proposed CI also provides that 1. The Commission shall designate the district office or any place it considers appropriate as a registration center. 2. In designating a place as a registration center, the Commission shall take into consideration the accessibility of the place to prospective applicants for registration. In our estimation, the proposed regulations on registration centers will create a number of avoidable problems for the electorate. First, it will, if implemented, make voter registration extremely difficult for citizens who are resident in areas where the district office, located usually in the district capital, are far from the surrounding villages where potential applicants live. In such situations, the cost of travel alone can be a disincentive to registration. In contrast, if the prevailing practice of using the polling stations, or in a worst-case scenario, the electoral areas, which are usually located within walking distances of residence of voters, is employed, this problem will not arise at all. Secondly, registrations conducted at the district offices will entail assigning polling stations to registrants at the point of registration. But the registrant will not know the physical location of their polling stations at the point of registration. Given the high level of illiteracy in the country, this will create utter confusion on election day, as voters may find it difficult locating their voting centers for the purposes of voting. Thirdly, the more egregious of the problems potentially associated with this measure is the possibility of gerrymandering engineered by registration officials. Gerrymandering is the act of manipulating electoral boundaries in a bid to favor one party. This takes various forms, the most common and obvious one being the redrawing of constituency boundaries so as to carve out a voter population predisposed to voting for one party. The more sophisticated form of gerrymandering, and the one that may likely occur with the proposed measure, is the capacity of registration officials to freely assign polling stations to registrants based upon projected voting preferences. The more dangerous form that this could take is where the registration official is able to assign potential voters across constituency lines in neighboring constituencies. It is also strongly felt that if the EC is indeed sincere in its intention to conduct a continuous registration exercise, it should rather come with an amendment to the existing CI for that purpose, instead of introducing a completely new CI. This will remove any lingering doubt that the EC intends to jettison the existing voters register in the near future. Claims by the EC that the CI is for only continuous registration is not only misleading but mischievous. Regulation 33 in the draft CI seeks to revoke CI 91 and CI 126. Therefore, by operation of law, once the CI is passed, it will be the only law on voter registration in Ghana. The EC knows that it does not have separate laws for continuous registration, limited registration, or mass registration. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, since our return to democratic governance in 1992, underpinned by a national constitution, we have all striven to nurture a vibrant democracy, build a nation governed by the rule of law. In this period, 8 elections have been held with varying degree of credibility. Despite the imperfection by overt partisanship and impunity by the current leadership of the Electoral Commission. Since the politically motivated and unconstitutional removal of the previous leadership of the Electoral Commission by President Akufo-Addo and the convenient installation of MPP surrogates, Jean Mensah and Bosman Asare at the helm of the Commission, consensus and dialogue have been in very short supply. Disrespect and hostility by Jean Mensah and her charges at the EC towards the NDC and other parties deemed to be opposed to the current government have become the order of the day. Jean Mensah and Bosman Asare have not hidden their intent and penchant for unreasonable and unjustifiable policies and measures aimed at furthering the interests of the MPP and the appointing authority, often to the disadvantage of the large sections of Ghanaians, especially those they believe are likely to vote against the MPP in elections. The alarm bells were set ringing when, out of the blue and without any sound justification, the Electoral Commission decided to compile a needless new voters register only because President Akufo-Addo and the MPP wanted it, having advertised their intentions long before they took power. The aim of that was to shore up the numbers of voters in MPP stronghold and suppress numbers in perceived NDC stronghold. To aid this unwise and inimical action, a bizarre and shocking judicial pronouncement was made to exclude birth certificates, which are standard identification documents the world over, from the list of documents deemed acceptable for the purposes of voters' registration. Identification for this purpose was thus restricted to only a Ghanaian passport and the Ghana card, whose rollout had only begun at the time and was fraught with so many difficulties and was not possessed by millions of Ghanaians who had a constitutional right to register and vote. All this was aimed at rigging the 2020 election even before the first ballot was cast. Another ill of the Jean Mensah and Bosman Asare tag team is the bastardization of IPAC, which is a representational body of political parties and relevant stakeholders in Ghana elections. Since its formation in 1994, IPAC has served as a fulcrum around which consensus had been reached on many issues regarding our electoral process. The tall list of reforms which had made Ghana's previous elections since 1992 the envy of many countries around the world, were birthed by IPAC after they were deliberated upon and consensus reached on their viability and suitability. The otherwise very useful platform has now been reduced to a place where the current leadership of the Electoral Commission arrogantly shoves unilateral decisions down the throat of political parties without any consultation. To give a dubious semblance of majority IPAC support for their often misguided fait accompli decisions, the EC has devised a system where mushroom virtually non-existent parties whose services have been procured by the MPP have been given 3 voting rights against 1 by the NDC. A party like the NDC with 137 MPs should not be outweighed at IPAC by parties with no credible presence on the political landscape and who have no representation in Parliament. Numerous complaints from us for a redress of this patently unjust situation have been met with intransigence by the EC. It is for this reason that we boycotted IPAC with a view to drawing attention to the caricature that it has become and how unworkable its present composition is. We are simply unable to be part of a system that is designed to rubber stamp fraudulent approval of NPP decisions handed to the EC to implement. Since announcing our boycott, several respected individuals and organizations, including the National Peace Council, the Commonwealth Secretariat, the United Nations Development Programme, and civil society organizations such as the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, CDD, and the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEC, have attempted to broker our return and resolve any issues that might be militating against him. While we have been willing to reach common grounds on the problems highlighted above and have them resolved to ensure our speedy return to IPAC, the Electoral Commission has remained obstinate and has flatly refused to even meet the mediating organizations to discuss the matter. Furthermore, almost 2 years after we submitted a comprehensive set of proposals for electoral reforms to the EC, they have not accorded us the courtesy of even studying the proposal and tabling them for discussions. Several of the reforms introduced in our electoral system were proposed in the past by the MPP, then in opposition. Back then, the proposals were tabled by previous EC leadership at IPAC and were adopted after deliberations by stakeholders. The G. Mensah-led EC does not appear to be concerned about maintaining and upholding these time-tested practices, which has served us well all this while, and rather favors a whimsical and dictatorial approach insofar as it inures to the benefit of the MPP. Ladies and gentlemen, the NDC received a letter dated 18th November 2018 and signed by Bossman Eric Asare, a deputy chairperson, inviting the NDC to an IPAC meeting on 24th November to discuss the draft constitutional instrument on registration of voters. Take note that this practice is a complete departure from the age-old, time-tested convention where IPAC first set up a committee to draft constitutional instrument for discussions and adoption. The NDC did not participate in this meeting. We received another letter dated 22nd December 2021, signed by Mr. Samuel Tete, Deputy Chairman Operations, inviting us to nominate representatives to be part of a subcommittee on a new constitutional instrument. The letter stated the composition as follows. Electoral Commission. B, MPP, 1 representative. C, NDC, 1 representative. D, parties without representation in parliament, 3 representatives. And E, civil society organizations, 3. This again constitutes a breach of the conventional composition of committees by IPAC, where 2 leading parties had 2 representatives each, and other parties without representation in parliament altogether nominate 1 representative. Why should political parties without representation in parliament have more representation on such a committee? Who are the CSOs being referred to, and who nominates their representatives to the committee? The above concerns notwithstanding, the NDC replied to the Commission's letter and nominated Alhaji Hudu Yaya, our first General Secretary, and Honorable Daniel Amate, our Deputy Director of Elections, as representatives on the subcommittee. Alhaji Hudu Yaya has indicated to us that he received an initial call from the EC inviting him for a meeting on the stated date. He was, however, subsequently called and informed that the meeting had been postponed and will be informed when a new date is determined. Later in August this year, our caucus in Parliament informed us about the Electoral Commission's proposed CI on registration of voters, sections of which they were vehemently opposed to. This again is a clear demonstration of bad faith on the part of the Electoral Commission. The EC is obviously up to a mischievous game to exclude the NDC from the processes of drafting the constitutional instrument. Our information is that the Committee on Subsidiary Registration asks a fundamental question of what mischief the EC was seeking to cure with this new radical shift from the current regime as provided under the Public Election Registration of Voters Amendment Regulation 2020 CI 126. Our members on the committee took the view that the power of the EC to make regulations cannot be exercised in an arbitrary manner, and so the EC must justify why it is seeking to radically revise the regime for providing identity for those registration purposes. Therefore, the committee asked the EC officials to provide evidence of the mischief occasioned by the application of the existing regulations. This the EC is yet to provide. Ladies and gentlemen, the peace and security of this country cannot be toyed with in the manner that the EC is doing. As noted in Ghana's National Security Strategy document, one of the major risks to Ghana's peace and security is mistrust in the electoral process. The strategy observes the suspicion of collusion between the ruling party and the Electoral Commission to rig elections for the ruling party continues to drive the situation towards dispute and potential violence. The strategy further urged the Electoral Commission to identify the sources of public mistrust in electioneering systems and processes and take necessary actions to make recommendations for addressing them. It is for this reason that we wish to caution the Electoral Commission to be mindful of its actions and inactions, since they have far-reaching implications for peace and security of our country. The conduct of the Electoral Commission reinforces the NDC's suspicion of collusion between the Commission and the New Patriotic Party to rig the 2024 elections. As a party with legitimate interest in the elections and given the high stakes of the 2024 elections, we are simply unwilling to allow any manipulation before, during, or after those elections, and we will demand the strictest standard in the processes leading up to the elections. Since the CI has not been formally laid before Parliament, we take this opportunity to call upon the EC to abandon the idea altogether. We wish to serve notice that we will use every lawful means to resist this latest effort to undermine the right of Ghanaians to vote and in the process skew the electoral system in favor of the MPP. We will mobilize the broad masses of Ghanaians to wage a sustained and unrelenting campaign to prevent any attempt by the EC to strip large sections of the population of their right to vote. The Ghana card is a new feature of our national life and cannot immediately become the only means to identify a Ghanaian, only because it plays into the hands of the MPP, whose members constitute the leadership of both the National Identification Authority and the EC. In the light of the above, we demand an immediate cessation of all work on the thorough deliberation with all relevant stakeholders to fine-tune it to take on board the concerns expressed by us and others that others may hold
are the open biases of the G-Mensa-led Electoral Commission, particularly to he's spoken about the lack of consultations and the non-involvement of the NDC in the drafting process of the need. If you have a question for him, kindly raise up your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you. You tell us your name. And then brief.
Okay, my name is Emmanuel Saki. I work with Top FM and TV, formerly Top Radio. Chairman,
You work with
Top FM, formerly Top Radio. It will be used for the coming 2024 election. You as a political party, what do you make of the executive director's comment about this?
No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll take more questions before.
That you're going to use every means lawful to resist this open bias by the EC. Now, there's a conversation about the fairness of the court, which I'm not sure you want to go to. Now, IPAC, which you spoke about, is also being another thing. Your members in parliament do your bidding. So at this stage,
So the question is,
what options are left for you as a party?
what options are left for us?
And
Thank
then
you very much.
question two, we've heard the president say that he handing over to an MPP president will be the greatest achievement of his political career. And that from 2017, break the eight, break the eight, break the eight. NDC seems very quiet about this. Are you concerned about these constant break the eight, message by the president?
Okay. Any other question? The national chairman is ably supported by the general secretary and our most experienced council of elders. So they will do justice to these questions. We have 4 questions so far. I believe, Chairman, you captured it. Yeah.
Well, if I heard you right, you were saying that the National Identification Authority says they don't have any problem with the EC using their card as a means of identification for Ghanaians to participate in our electoral process. We as a party, we don't have any problem with the use of Ghana card. And we have said a time without numbers that if the National Identification Authority is able to provide Ghana card for all Ghanaians, we are good to go with it. But the NIA itself is saying that over 2 million Ghanaians 15 years and above have not been registered. And we also know on records that about 1.5 million Ghanaians who have registered with the Ghana card still have their cards not being delivered to them. If you add that 1.5 to the 2 million, you are talking about 3.5 million Ghanaians who will not have access to the Ghana card. And we are simply saying that the Constitution says that expand the frontiers of registration and make sure that every Ghanaian participates in our electoral process. So if you have a system where ab initio 3.5 million Ghanaians do not have the card, and you agree with me, if you call, you are all media personnel, if you go onto the street and ask those who are struggling, even with the SIM registration, to get their Ghana card, the challenges that some of them have gone through, 3 months, 6 months, they are not getting their Ghana card. So the decision is very simple. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. The Electoral Commission assured us before 2020 that they are undertaking a registration of voters, which will be the last registration that they will conduct. And that all that are required to ensure that the and others. So that is our position. The second question is, what options are left? There are several options available to us, but we will keep those options very close to our chest. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. On the question of whether we are worried about Nana Akufo-Addo's comments and effusions that he will hand over to an MPP government, it doesn't lie in the mouth of Nana Akufo-Addo to determine who to hand over power to. That sovereignty resides in Ghanaians. And Ghanaians will be called upon in 2024 to go and exercise their franchise. And if there is anything to go by, recent surveys by all the reputable institutions tells us that over 80% of Ghanaians feel that this country is moving in the wrong direction. And so if coming events has anything to do, as they say, coming events cast their shadow, then what Nana Akufo-Addo is engaging is just empty rhetorics. We want to state emphatically that when they realize they are losing the election, they will start packing bag and baggage from their offices before the final declaration is made by the Electoral Commission. And we are not interested in going to fight him for those statements that he's making, because we believe that the NDC is preparing itself to win a very convincing election in 2024 And we have indicated that we are not going to the Supreme Court again. That is why all the processes leading to strengthening the structures of the party make the party a battle-ready party for election 2024 is currently being undertaken by the party. So we will not, address our minds to what he is saying. The time will come, and when Ghanaians speak, Nana Akufo-Addo have no option than to give way for a new NDC government to take over the reins of government.
I saw my senior brother, Eric Ahianyo. Can you kindly bring him the microphone? He has a question. Aside Eric, do we have any other question? You've already asked a question, so if this is the only question we have, then that's fine. Okay. I can see Elton John Broby in the crowd. Do you have a question for us? Thank you. Okay, Eric, the floor is yours.
It's clear that the NDC doesn't trust the Electoral Commission. I want to ask, do you trust the NIA? Do you have measures to put in place to audit NIA's data in view of processes that led to mass registration across the country, even if you stand by your position that the new CI must be dropped? Last, there is a narrative. Make noise, you demonstrate, and government will still go ahead to do what it wants. Should Ghanaians believe the assurances you are giving today? Thank you.
Okay, that's two questions. Thank you. Any other? Can you bring the microphone here? Your name, your media organization, and your question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Maxwell Otu. I work with Onia TV and then Onia FM. We have hung parliament, and then on many occasions that we've seen NDC members in parliament using their numerical force to oppose proposals and bills by the government. So one would say that why don't you rather depend on the number of MPs that you have in parliament? Because before the bill will be passed, it has to go through parliament, rather than using lawful means, like you said, mobilizing the masses to kick against this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question?
Sammy,
Any other? Okay. Let's take the last one.
To back your allegation or claim, so that we as journalists, whenever we are educating the public, we will know the exact information that we are sending out there.
Thank you very much. Chairman.
Well, first of all, let me start from where you ended. We have given you indications the time-tested procedures and practices that have been adopted by a constitutional instrument. And I have served on IPAC for over 19 years, representing my party at IPAC. And I know what goes on in IPAC, that any time constitutional instrument is being crafted, political parties are asked to bear representation. In fact, even before the 2016 elections, when the Electoral Commission intended to undertake electronic transmission of the resource, the MPP insisted that even the procurement processes must involve political parties where the MPP and NDC will be represented. And so for all these years, that is how we've gone about things there. If you have a situation where a constitutional instrument is drafted and you are called to come and deliberate on it, then it means a far departure from what we used to have. Again, when the committee, the EC met a parliamentary committee, the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, at that meeting, there was almost a consensus that the use of Ghana passport and the guarantee system will be part of the processes. The EC left the meeting and the MPP started making pronouncements to the effect that only Ghana card will be the source of identification. And lo and behold, after those statements from MPP top-ranking personnel, the EC came with a press conference to affirm the position of the MPP that the Ghana card will be the only means of identification. It therefore ties into our suspicion that they are in collusion with the MPP. Otherwise, why do you go to Parliament, almost agree on the committee, and the committee is made up of NDC MPP, that these two are critical. And let me also refresh your memory that in 2017, the NIA itself came to Parliament to amend their own law to include guaranteeing that if you are going to acquire the NIA card, the Ghana card, there's a provision that if you don't have the listed sources of identification, guaranteeing by other two people, guaranteeing you to register for the Ghana card is permitted. So even the Ghana card itself, which they are claiming they are going to use as the only source document to get that Ghana card, people can even vouch for you. And between even the Ghana card and the Electoral Commission card, Electoral Commission voter registration identity card, when it is being issued, political parties are present. And they are there to even challenge people who claim they doubt. And it goes through an adjudication process for it to be settled. And so, for us, even the acquisition of voter ID card under the current regime of the EC is more scrupulous than what people even go through to get a Ghana card. What's the other question? Yes.
Why don't we rely on our members
of Parliament? Our members of Parliament are there to ensure that they make input in the crafting of laws, legislation, and what have you. But this is a political process. The process doesn't begin from Parliament. The process begins with participation by political parties. So we cannot wait and then, look unconcerned. Whilst this to Parliament, if the harm has already been done, what are you? By two-thirds majority of MPs present and voting. And so it is not an easy task because we have almost a hung Parliament. And to go and say that, the minister goes to bow and say, I have laid the constitutional instrument, the CI, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And the days start counting. And by 21 days, the CI matures and becomes law. And so what we can do is that the preparatory stages of the CI and the stakeholder engagement where the political parties are called to participate is what matters most, and not wait until the CI is laid before Parliament and then you say you are going to rely on your MPs and you cannot marshal two-thirds majority in Parliament to change anything in the CI. In fact, to be very, to let you know, if you want to even do any correction on a CI or LI that has been put before Parliament, you need to withdraw the same thing, go and do the correction before it is laid again. I have been a local government minister, and in 2011, when we were establishing new district assemblies, I know what we went. You have to withdraw it, go and do corrections, and so forth. So it is not an easy task at all. Secretary is here, our director of IT and others are here. Even the distribution of the kit for registration was skewed in favor of areas that are considered to be stronghold of the MPP. It is on record that our MP for Adakulu, Honorable Kwame Agboja, went to his constituency to check on the number of registered voters, number of people who have been registered under the Ghana card regime. And out of about 33,000 registered voters, less than 3,000 had been captured under the Ghana card. And this goes all over in our strongholds, where you go there and they say machines are broken down, and this is places which
NDC banter. Take up the issues we have raised in today's statement. The location for registration, making the Ghana card the sole identification document for registration and all that. Do your own investigations, do your own editorials, speak to the people you must speak to, and ensure that we hold the Electoral Commission and the duty bearers of this country accountable to protect fundamental and inalienable rights of citizens that are guaranteed in the 1992 Constitution. Let me also announce that there was a solid team, a very solid team, not the Bawumia-led economic management team kind of solid team, that helped the Council of Elders and the leadership of the party to put together this position of the party. We have, as I've already introduced to you, our Director for IT, Kwame Griffiths, who is former Director General for the National Identification Authority, our Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram and Deputy Ranking Member for the Communications Committee in Parliament, our Director for Elections, Honorable Elvis Efriankra, are on standby to, Dr. Haji is also here, former Director General for the NIA, on standby to grant you interviews on these topics and further elaborate on the issues. For those of you who want presentations on the issues, you can speak to Honorable Elvis Efriankra, Honorable Griffiths. As for Sam George's tree, is not that good. It's not learning small. So, yes. And finally, let me once again express our profound gratitude to Joy News, GH1 Television, UTV, TVXYZ, Power FM, Pan African TV, Asempa FM, Radio Gold, Ahoto FM, and Loud Silence Media, Active TV, for streaming this important press conference live for us on their various team platforms. Thank you very much for your time. We'll be with you shortly.